Hi and welcome. Another week of the Techno Dinosaur meets the IT Geek. My name is David Logan. I am the IT Geek. I explain technology, keep it simple, take the jargon out for the Techno Dinosaur. I'm based here in Annan, southwest of Scotland, UK. With me today is Willie Nicol. So Willie, how are you and where are you today?
Hi David, I'm very well thanks. I am indeed the Techno Dinosaur, although I actually managed to earn a living as a life coach. I'm based in Troon, South Ayrshire, Scotland.
Fantastic. We're on week number 25 this week. Video. Who would have thought half a year later we are still doing this? This week, I have a question for you. I set up a coffee challenge on Facebook. I don't know if you see the daily videos I do on Facebook. This time it was a challenge to stop drinking coffee for 1 month, which we are currently in the middle of September. We're in the middle of this now. I had a couple of people who volunteered. Through Messenger, I went back to a few of the volunteers and I asked, one of them came back, "Oh, David, I've just had a tea, so stressed, so exhausted." Now, he's maybe had coffee for maybe a couple of days, missed it for a couple of days. The question to you, for stress, do people go to coffee, go to tea, or other food supplements to keep the stress levels down?
I think the short answer, David, is yes. We've heard of comfort eating, comfort drinking, stress eating or stress drinking. And I have some notes here that I found online about levels of stress. So let me just quote this to you. In a YouGov study of stress levels in the UK in 2018, 74% of British people said they were so stressed they felt overwhelmed or unable to cope. This caused 46% of them to eat too much or make unhealthy food choices, and 29% of them started drinking more heavily. An American Psychological Association study found that about 25% of Americans rate their stress levels as 8 out of 10 on a 1 to 10 scale. So as we've alluded to previously, stress is an issue. The way we cope with stress varies from individual to individual, but there are some common themes. We talked previously about stress being similar to the fight or flight syndrome, where when confronted with danger, our brain automatically triggers certain reactions in preparation for fight or flight. And viewers may remember me talking about the production of adrenaline, which stimulates your heart to beat faster, pump blood around your body, prepares you for that fight or flight situation. And there is another element to it where it subdues non-essential bodily functions that are not required for the fight or flight. So it suppresses your appetite, your immune system, and all these non-essential functions for fight or flight. So that might be a good thing. But it also stimulates a hormone called cortisol. And over a prolonged period, cortisol actually stimulates your appetite. So if the stress levels remain at a high level and the cortisol levels don't return to normal, or your kind of cortisol autopilot switch remains in the on position, you will be tempted to eat more. So that also applies to drinking. We may reach for the coffee, fizzy drinks, energy drinks, all of which have caffeine. or we may actually reach for the bottle of beer or a wee cheeky gin and tonic. So using these stress release mechanisms is fine up to a point. But if we continue to use these simplistic coping mechanisms over a prolonged period because we're suffering from prolonged stress, as you can imagine, that's not a good thing.
You mentioned there some drinks, gin and tonic, for example, a beer, a coffee. What's the common factor there? Is it just comfort drink or comfort food, do you think? Or is it the sugar content?
The sugar content, fat content. There are certain foods, generally high in sugar and high in fat, which they call comfort foods, because they trigger within us a kind of feeling of comfort and release of stress or relief from stress. And that's why we have a tendency to go for the cookie jar or a big hamburger or whatever, right? We want something to make us feel better because we're stressed. So instead of having a nice big glass of water or juice or reaching for a bit of fruit, we are tempted to go for slightly more unhealthy options. And a part of it is down to our mental state, because what do we do when we're stressed? We have a cookie. Or we may have a cigarette, smoke a cigarette, or whatever, have a cup of coffee. There's also the physiological elements I touched on earlier, where you have hormones within your body that can stimulate your appetite. And if your appetite's stimulated, you want something tasty, you want something that's going to make you feel better. The comfort foods, that's why you get the term comfort eating, right? So our reactions to stress when it comes to eating and drinking can be partly psychological up here and partly physiological because of the triggers that our body produces. And a very interesting thing which I didn't know, and again I'm going to refer to my notes, there is a hormone called ghrelin, which is Ghrelin, which is known as the hunger hormone, because it stimulates appetite, increases food intake, and promotes fat storage. Right? So if we're eating a lot of unhealthy stuff and this hormone triggers, we're going to put on weight. Right? And that might make us even more stressed because we're putting weight on. Right? So these comfort foods can actually become cravings. We've all heard that, cravings. Or I need something to eat, and it must be a bag of crisps, or it must be something, right? Or it must be full fat coffee. None of this decaf nonsense, right? In fact, give me 2 shots of that, Mr. Costa Man. Right? Like everything, in moderation, yes, that's great. But you've confessed to me that many moons ago you drank 10 cups of coffee a day, which, without being impolite, is not a good thing. So we've got to look at the psychological thing. Our thoughts create emotions, which then create actions. So we think something, it stimulates an emotion, we're then prompted to take some sort of action. And whenever we take an action, there's an outcome.
Fantastic. Good. I've got another question for you.
Okay.
But I'll leave that until the next video. Leave that. Okay?
Okay, fine, thank you.
I think we need to close this to get under the limit. So to the viewer, if you've got any more questions to fire to Wally, comment down below on any of the social media, any of the social media channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Drop us a comment. So that's us for this week. If you're stressed, if you're anxious, speak to Wally. Thank you. Have a great week. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'll reiterate the advice. Stay healthy, stay safe. If you're stressed, get in touch. It's goodbye from me, Willie Nicol, life coach, Techno Dinosaur.